Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the India Game Changer. You're smiling now, I like it. Today we are joined by Vinayak Shrivastav, a co-founder and the CEO at VideoVerse. Vinayak, it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Good, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And before we get into the main part of the conversation and I start asking you about the ring light behind you, I want to get a bit of your background for some context.
Sure. So, my personal background has been that obviously I grew up in Pune, which is a city in India. Did my engineering from Pune. Complete my engineering, worked for a year in Pune, moved on to London, did my MBA from LBS. After which, obviously, didn't land up a job immediately in London, so came back to India and had this massive student loan that had piled up on me over the 15 months that I spent in London.
Oh,
So
no.
needed a fancy job to pay it off really well and quick. That was the main agenda there. Was lucky, ended up getting a gig at a venture capital fund, which is an early stage ecosystem, where we were trying to fund media companies and mobility companies across India and US. So it was paying well. I obviously enjoyed working there as well for the first year. And a year was enough for me to pay off my student loan. As soon as I paid off my student loan, the first thing that came to my mind was, let's move out of here because this is not what I wanted to do.
Right.
But what really happened during the year was I kept getting excited to meet new entrepreneurs and just realized that, probably this is the right time to start something. There's no loan on me. I don't have any liabilities sitting on me. If I don't start something now, I don't know when I will be able to. But to my surprise, I didn't exactly start immediately, right? Like I had a lot of ideas, but I didn't start immediately. Took up a consulting gig immediately after that because it was a direct transition from investing in media companies and then consulting for a media company. Did that for like 7 months, and after which I actually started the company in 2016. So yeah, that's kind of been the early days for me.
Did you think when you were going to school or when you were an engineer and even when you were growing up that you were going to be an entrepreneur? Because one of the things that you said that was interesting, right? And this is not true for a lot of people that come on these shows, is that you graduated from your MBA in London, which is neat, yeah. And then I just wanted to go find a job, but I couldn't find a job in London, which I find kind of shocking. So I came home. Do you think if you'd stayed in London and had a job that you just would have stayed there and worked at that job for a while? Or was it the same kind of strategy? I'll get a job, pay off my loan, and then I just have to go do my thing on my own. What do you think?
Not at all. I think if I would have got a job in London, I wouldn't be back in India, very
Really?
honestly. Really, because I always wanted to kind of land a gig in London. Unfortunately, because of various reasons, I was not able to. Right, the work visa was not able to come through. I had a really cool internship that I was doing in London, and the guys offered me to kind of stay back and try and apply for it, but things were getting a little tight for me, right? The
Yeah.
student loan that had piled up, I couldn't afford to kind of continue doing an internship. Needed to land a serious gig, which was going to pay me serious money, so I could start repaying the loan back. So yeah, if I did stay back in London, I don't think I would have come back to India at least for 3 to 4 years, at least.
So there was no like, look, a lot of the people that I talk to say there was always this itch inside me that I needed to scratch about running something on my own. I've always had a bunch of ideas and I just wanted to implement them. And I get it. Look, when I graduated from college, I had a decent amount of student loan, student debt as well. And that's why I
Yeah.
went to Wall Street because I wanted to pay it off. And I got stuck actually there with what they had called at the time golden handcuffs, right? Because every year you make a little bit more money. And I just got stuck. So I paid off my student loans and then just stayed in the drudgery for like 20 years. So good for you for leaving, by the way. In a way, not getting a job in London may have been a good thing, no?
And now that I think of it, obviously, it was probably the best thing that happened to me. Back then, it was looking like a curse, right?
Right.
Why only me? Because most of the people in my batch ended up getting a cool job in London. So I was like, why me? Did I really do something wrong? What's really happening? A lot of questions, right? You keep getting these
Yeah.
questions when you're kind of going through that phase. That's exactly what happened to me. I was in a phase where I was kind of questioning myself and I was questioning my decisions at the same time. So though I didn't really have an option, but I'm glad it happened. I'm glad where it landed up today and where we are. Because if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have come back to India. I wouldn't have taken up the gig with the venture capitalist fund. I wouldn't have gotten bitten by the entire entrepreneurial bug, and I wouldn't have started this. So there's a lot of connections that got built into this, I would say.
When you look back at the experience you had at the venture capital business, which in and of itself is its own kind of unique thing, right? Are there things that you got out of that year and a bit that you still carry with you today? Do you know what I mean? Like just your ability to, I don't know what you were doing there, but I'm sure you did some sort of deal sourcing, deal analysis, and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say really. It's not apples to apples that kind of
for
comes to.
sure.
So being on that side of the table is very different because your idea there is to kind of try and find cool founders. You're
Yeah,
basically trying to find new ideas. You're trying to find ideas that can actually make money. So you're trying to kind of weigh with the businesses very differently. The minute you flip over to the other side, your thought process changes because then you understand that the old me was a complete jackass, right? Like, what did he? Like, he knew nothing about the business. He was just an outsider who had a overview, a 10,000 feet overview, who was trying to understand my business without really getting into it, and is just going to make his assumptions basis on some Excel sheet. So, I really appreciate what the investors do today because it
sure.
takes a lot of courage to kind of make up your mind and kind of have the conviction to go after a company and invest in it. But at the same time, I after coming to this side, I've just become more I would say empathic towards the entrepreneurs because I know what it takes to kind of make it right. It takes a lot of your sacrifices coming in. People who say that entrepreneurship is swanky, fancy, things go easy, have never really kind of done it the right way.
No,
If you
they've
do it the
just,
right way, there are a bunch of sacrifices, and those sacrifices are not easy. Kind of, you let go of your social life after the point of time. You let go of your friends. You let go of your family. You kind of go into this nutshell that you're trying to kind of crack open yourself, and you put yourself in it. I mean, you never wanted to go in it, but you put yourself in it because you wanted to, kind of make it big. And that's something that most of the investors, I think, yet don't understand. And I wouldn't blame them. It's just that
no, they just
invest.
don't know, right? In other words,
Yes,
if you've
exactly.
never had a pizza and you just look at a pizza, you can say, I think I know what that tastes like. But until you actually put it in your
Absolutely.
mouth and have a few different types of them, you're not going to know. I want to ask
Absolutely.
you this though, if you don't mind. You know, part of being an entrepreneur is like you have to be really focused. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you said like, you know, you lose the connection with your family, with your friends, and all this other stuff, and it's weird, right? Because you have to kind of make a decision that I'm going to block this stuff out because if I don't block it out, I'm literally not going to have enough energy and time to build this thing that I'm really committed to building. And it's weird too, right? I remember when I was in college, and tell me if this is similar. One of the guys that came to school to talk to us on career days said, if you go to Wall Street and join one of these analyst programs, which was really popular when I was graduating from school, he said, look, at the last minute, you're going to cancel dinner with your friends and you're going to find out who your real friends are by the ones that just go, it's okay, we'll see each other next week. It doesn't really matter because you're going to let everybody down. And it's weird, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you're trying not to let anybody down. But at some point, you have to change the category of people that you're not letting down, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. So I would say what really happens is that the minute you get into this, obviously you want to become a people person because that's the biggest trait that every entrepreneur needs to have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that you need to get people excited to join you. Everything is about getting people excited, right? You want to get your investors excited. You want to get your clients excited. You want to get your fellow colleagues excited. You want to get your co-founders excited. You want everyone to be excited about this grand vision that you have, right? But what really happens is you're basically putting on a mask, right? You basically know that this is all what you have to do to make this successful, which is not a bad thing, I would say.
No?
What really starts happening here is that yes, while you understand that this is what you need to do, you start losing track of the actual reality for yourself, right? What that means is you start losing reality with your friends, you start losing time with your family, because now you have these other jobs to do.
That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what really ends up happening. And it's what we don't want to do. I would say it's not a natural instinct that happens,
No.
but it just kind of picks up while you kind of get passionate about what you're building.
Yes. So, what is this vision? right? This thing that you want to get everybody excited about, the investors, and the hiring thing. I think is actually really important too, right? How to get people to actually jump on this ship with you is also really hard. But let's back up and say, what is this big vision that you have?
So let's talk about what VideoVerse is, right?
Yep.
For the context here. So the idea of VideoVerse was very simple when it came to us, right? We kind of knew that we were a little bit ahead in terms of what we were trying to build. And I wouldn't use the word, I would say disruptive, because that's used way too many times these
Yep.
days. I would say
Yep.
we're just trying to do something very differently. That was basically what it was, right? And we knew that there will be an acceptance to what we're building because we had an initial kind of a cohort built around the kind of customers we wanted to go after. So everyone here who's listening to us, what VideoVerse does today is build smart editing tools, right? So within the company, we have three different kind of tracks running. The first track is an enterprise track where we actually automate curation of your editing. What that means is if you're watching a soccer match, you're watching an F1, you're watching a tennis match, watching cricket, any of these games that you're watching online these days, has an element of instant key moments and highlights that get created. The audiences can watch in real time. That's something that we do automatically because it's very difficult to kind of do it at scale in volume manually.
How does that happen though? So I just want to make sure that I understand this. Let's say I'm watching an F1 race, right? Which is super
Yeah,
cool. So I'm watching a race, an F1 race in Monaco or in Singapore. It doesn't matter to me. And you're right. Like if there's, for no better reason, if there's a crash or if something exciting happens, if somebody overtakes somebody or something unexpected happens, are you suggesting that the video software itself can see that and notice it through artificial intelligence and say, I'm going to create a clip of that right now?
absolutely. That's how it works. So what we basically do is
Really?
we run three artificial intelligence modules, right? We run OCR, we run speech to text, we run actually an object detection tool within the content.
Got it. Okay.
So, so what we do is basically when, for an example, Hamilton has just done a pass maybe on, say, Alonso, which didn't happen, unfortunately, over the last weekend in Monaco. But if that would have happened, we would have understood by these three different elements, and we would have created an exact moment on the screen where the pass would have happened.
So so because the announcer is saying something, right? Like Hamilton just passes Alonso. You know that because you're listening for that. But you're also
Correct.
watching the video at the same time with another module. And then I forget what the third one is. And all three of those combined say, we got to cut this out and make this into something new right away.
Absolutely. We cut it out and we actually don't make it into just a single aspect ratio because today, if you see,
Sure.
these clips have to be very dynamic as to where you're consuming it. If you're consuming this on, say, a social media, the social media aspect ratios are so different. Like
Yep.
you want a 1:1, you want a 9:16, you want a 16:9. So
Yep.
we'll help you convert into all those dynamically. We'll also help you make it a little bit more, I would say, insightful and consuming at the same time. So we want to make it sexy. We want to make it sexy. The content needs to be sexy for you to consume it. That means that you cannot just have a blank video there, just the moment. You
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
have
sure.
like a pre, you want to have a post. So we kind of help you add all of that in real time and just spit out the content in less than like 2 seconds. That's how fast it goes. And because it's going that fast.
Sorry, what is the pre and post stuff? Because I get now what the main video thing is, and that's actually super cool, right? Because before you'd have to have
Yeah.
some guy yelling at some other guy going, cut that out and like do this thing and make that thing. And while he's doing that, three other people are doing the pre and the post stuff. And then they're stitching it together using Adobe Premiere and stuff. It gets hard, right? So
Correct.
what is the pre and the post? Where does that come from?
So it's usually pre-fed, right? So for example, it can be your entire ad inventory. It can be maybe a simple slate that says that catch a quick F1 highlight, right?
Got it.
Or something with the broadcaster logo. So it's something that will just kind of create a moment of, say, a quick urgency into the content. Or it can just be that I can type in text saying that Hamilton's pass on Alonso, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it just has some context to the content. That's all.
That is super. So you said you have three of these things. So one is enterprise. That is super cool. How long did it take you guys to build that?
It took us 2 years. I wouldn't say we have yet stopped building it
For
because we are
sure.
building
But I
it.
mean, just to get it
We're
to a
building
point where it's useful. Yeah.
absolutely. It took us 2 years to kind of get it to a point where it was absolutely useful. So most of the early years was gone into development. 2018 is when we actually went live with a beta. 2019 is when we actually started monetizing.
Got
And
it.
trust me, the first 3 years was the most frustrating one because we had burnt out the entire savings into it, and we really wanted to kind of make this work. At the point in 2019 when we actually ended up making first real money, we told ourselves, me and my, the other co-founders, Saket and Alok, we told ourselves that we got to make this work. If this doesn't work, we're not going to get emotional about it, and we're going to try and figure something else. So we're at that point where we're like, either this works now, or we kind of figure out what next, right?
Right.
Let's not over push it.
Are all three of you sports fans? Because this seems uniquely useful for sports.
Oh, I'm a crazy sports fan. I definitely know that Saket is, but Alok isn't much of a sports fan. But he's a hardcore tech junkie. I would say that the itch that he has is in trying to kind of build something new always, and the itch that Saket gets always is to kind of try and kind of find newer things to do. Right? He's just an operator at heart. So I feel truly kind of blessed and happy at the same time that
Yeah.
I was able to find the right set of people to do this with, because no matter what you say, you want the right set of people to do this with. You want them to kind of be your friends, your family. You want to fight with them, you want to be happy with them, you want to
Yeah.
sing with them. So it's everything together.
Do you remember? Because you said like the first couple of years are the hardest, right? They're the most frustrating
Yeah.
because you're building this thing and you can't even give it to anybody to see like the outcome of it, right? You can test it yourselves, but it's never going to work at the beginning, right? This is the sort of, these are the dark moments for all entrepreneurs where you're like, okay, what's the status of that? What's the status of this? Can we get it? Do we know what they're saying? Do we know what that video looks like? It's not synced, like all this kind of stuff that makes you crazy. Do you
Yeah.
remember that moment where you like actually were watching something, you used this thing, which is Magnify, yeah? You used
Yeah.
Magnify and you were like, oh no, that thing worked. Do you know what I mean?
No, no. So what we did is we probably, I would say, we tried kind of making our early customers also our power testers, right?
Yeah,
What
fair
that
enough.
happened is we actually went to them while we were developing this entire phase. We actually shamelessly went to them and said that, look, guys, we don't want anything from you. Well, I know you can't use this tool today.
Right.
Why don't you just keep testing it with us? And I really owe it to the early guys that really stepped in and said that, guys, we appreciate what you're trying to build. We might not be able to use it today, but we'll test it for you. And that was the best thing to happen, that
Yeah.
we got them to test it so much that by the time the tool actually went live, right, in beta in 2018, we'd actually wiggled through all the problems that they were going through. So the first time the product went live, and now this is the funny story. The first time the product went live, for the first 10 minutes, the entire system was down. And we were taken aback. We were like, oh no, it can't happen after 2 years. Like,
Right.
we've tested it. And it was with the same person that we were testing it, and we
Oh
went live.
no.
And they were like, this is not working out, guys. And exactly when he was about to shut the system down, I don't know what really happened, but the system started working. He could start seeing the clips coming in. Later on, obviously, we were able to kind of understand why that happened. We had
Sure.
a lower grade system in place, which we upgraded later on, but we got lucky. We got lucky just when he was about to shut down and say that, look, guys, I've put in enough time with you. It's not working. I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. That's when it started working.
Wow.
And
That's
fortunately,
scary.
today, they're one of the biggest clients that we serve.
That's so scary, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is the scariest thing that can happen to you.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say. So what else is part of the suite of stuff that you have?
Sure. So that's Magnify that we just spoke about.
Yep.
Then there's Stick, which is basically a multi-streaming platform, which allows influencers, prosumers, the new term that the industry uses,
Yep.
to go live on multiple social platforms using different tool sets that has been built to their persona. So if you're saying a gamer, you'll have a different set of tools built into the backend, which you'll be able to take live. So you'll be able to have like a different skins. You'll have to have different kind of settings built into it. If you're an influencer, you'll have a different set of persona built into it. So that's what the tool does. It's basically a bunch of things that gives you easy free flow access to go live on multiple social platforms.
But it's got to be better than what's already out there, right? In other words, there are tons of things out there. If I look at the
Yeah,
product suite that you have, there are tons of other products that are competing with Stick. It must do
correct.
something different, right?
Absolutely. The idea there is to kind of, replace OBS over a period of time. So what we realize is OBS has been a legacy product, right? Now,
Yeah.
everything that we've built, the idea here has been to try and see if some of the legacy products could be challenged, or some of the legacy products could not do it and we'll be able to do it better, right?
Yep.
And the reason is not because they can't do it. The reason is because the minute you become a big organization, things are more
Yeah.
bureaucratical, right? It takes time to kind of get things around. And that's exactly what we realized, that the companies will have the capabilities to do it, but it will not be on top of their agenda, because the current machine that actually makes them money is good enough, and no one wants to replace an existing machine in place. So that's exactly what happened with us. We realized that we want to kind of do something. We know we'll not be able to do it better, but we'll be able to do it faster. So the idea here was to do it faster over a period of time, just make a niche market within itself. Now when it comes to Stick, the idea here is to kind of bring in cross collaboration that none of the platforms today provide. Right now, say for example, Michael and Vinayak want to kind of collaborate over a live streaming, and at
Yep.
the same time have control over what we're really giving it to our audiences and what we're really kind of doing with the audiences.
Yep.
And at the same time, our audiences want to get engaged with us. What that means is the work that you and I are doing live, they want to kind of collaborate on it. We wouldn't want to publish the content live immediately, but they would want to collaborate on it. They would want to give their comments. They would want to give, say, feedbacks. Maybe we have a team somewhere in US. They would want to kind of sit on the back end and say that, look, Michael, at this point there's some distortion that's there in the background. Can we get rid of it? You don't have to remove the content, download it, upload it, and send it again anymore. You can just do it on the platform. You'll be able to collaborate with your friends and family. You'll be able to live stream together, and you'll be able to edit together. That's what Stick does.
It's edit together. I mean, I use OBS, right? So this video that you're watching right now is being driven by OBS. It's so easy for me to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some things that I'd like to be able to do that are different. I'm really curious. And to be fair, I think about Magnify as well for myself. Like if Magnify were watching this video that you and I were doing, right? Because the whole thing about what happens with video production, although we won't post this video, is that everybody wants to see 3-minute snippets or 5-minute snippets out of an hour-long conversation, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what really drives engagement. So are you suggesting that we could actually do this on Stick? I could have Magnify be watching it in real time and creating snippets where you say something like, hey, this is a really funny story. And then it goes,
Yeah.
oh, I better take this thing out. And when that story feels like it's done because it watches you and me react to it and we say something like, okay, that was cool or whatever, it'll just stop. And then at the end of the day, I could have somebody then edit that out, or I could do it on platform and then just like distribute it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that sounds super cool. And then what is Illusto?
So Illustrator is basically an extended version of what Stick and what Magnify is. It's just meant for the consumers out there today. What it does is we have brought the entire power of editing offline to maybe an online process. That's basically what we're trying to do. We've realized that video editing over the years has not really changed.
Not
Though we have
really.
had much more access to different apps on the mobile phones, the web editing and the desktop editing hasn't really seen too much of a change. The
No.
desktop editing today is led by your Final Cut Pros of the world, your Adobe
Adobe
Premiere
Premieres,
Pros
yeah.
so what we really wanted to do is everyone's not going to be able to afford a high-end system like a MacBook Pro. Everyone does not have access to the kind of license money that maybe a Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro will charge.
Right.
The idea here is to bring in something more sustainable. And our target audience that we're going after is actually the 8-year-old to maybe a 28-year-old who
Oh, wow.
aspire to upload content online, right? Everyone wants to upload content online. Everyone looks at 12-year-old kid just making like $10 million on YouTube last year. And everyone was like, okay, look, even I can upload some content online and I can make some money.
Right.
But obviously, they don't have an editing team. They don't have time. Parents are more than happy that their kids want to go online and want to explore editing, but they don't want to pay for some expensive stuff because they know that their kids won't be able to use it.
Right.
So they will not let them subscribe to maybe an Adobe Premiere Pro, but they'll definitely let them subscribe to something as reasonable as maybe an Illusto. And that's where Illusto really comes in. The idea to kind of just bring in easy editing online and affordable editing.
And what does it do? So it uses back-end compute. So it uses cloud computing,
Absolutely.
which you
So
can
what we
which you can attack with as much compute as you possibly can. And you're hoping or relying on the fact that people have high-speed internet access, right? So that there's
correct.
no throughput problem, and that they
Correct.
could do it on like an old MacBook Air or something because they don't need to have the
Ah,
compute power on their machine itself. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. The idea here is just have a decent connectivity, right? We realized that the CPUs, the old CPUs that are there in place, if you actually try and process on them, the load becomes too much, and then the computer starts crashing.
Yeah.
If you take the entire computer and put it up on cloud, you can actually make it better. You just have to kind of make sure that there is somehow a compute built into the cloud which can allow you to easily access the server files. That means that you're able to compute much faster. So if
Got
you're
it.
able to compute much faster, we solve most of the problem. The only dependency that really kicks in here is the connectivity.
So, what is the future of all of this? In other words, you've built all these components, right? And I get what Magnify is and what Stick is and what Illusto is.
Yeah.
Is there is there a media company being built here? Do you know what I mean? In other words, or are you going to rely on other people? You're laughing at me, so I feel like I've hit a nerve. But are you going to rely on everybody else to use these tools to create great video, or do you have an idea as well to say, "Hey, wait a second, we love media too, and we've built this incredible platform. Shouldn't we be creating our own media?" Is this an idea you have as well?
No. The reason why I laughed is because we've been asked that question too many times, right?
But
And
go ahead. But
yeah,
it's an obvious question, right? I mean,
yeah,
you,
it's a very obvious question. The thought process has been that we realize that to be a media company, it takes a lot more than just building tools, right? It's not about just building tools.
tell me about it.
And the idea for us is we realize that we're great at building technology. We're great at building platforms. The company has succeeded so far. We want to become the company that actually has all the tools that the media company uses eventually. And that's the reason why we call ourselves VideoVerse, right? The idea here is to build a universe around the video ecosystem,
Yep.
the video editing ecosystem, the video transcoding system, the video broadcasting system. And that's what we're really getting to. So if you see each of the product that we have built is actually hitting a nerve in the media industry. You look at Illusto, it hits a nerve in the media industry in the editing space. You look at Magnify, it hits a nerve on the enterprise sector. You
Yep.
look at Stick, it hits a nerve in terms of the broadcasting sectors for the consumers, right? So we realize that each of these products in itself are actually creating a huge business within the ecosystem. And the end goal is that how can you actually create your unified ecosystem where someone actually enters your ecosystem and does not have to ever leave again. So you're basically trying to build a suite of products that's going to be able to service everything that media companies and people who love media and produce content are going to be using it.
Do you see media, particularly using artificial intelligence, excuse me, and some of the more advanced tools that can be built, taking a position inside the metaverse to make the experience of not just watching video and creating video, but interacting with the video more immersive? And do you see a future where VideoVerse itself builds those tools to do that at scale? You can see behind me, you know, just by looking at me, and I can tell the difference between looking at what I have and what you have, that I've got a green screen. So you can
Yeah.
see that there, it's a little bit more, what's the right word, immersive over here. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think about this when you're building these tools and think, as remember, we already talked about the power of compute. The power of compute in the cloud keeps getting stronger. The connectivity that we have keeps getting, the pipes just keep getting bigger, right? I mean, my
Um,
speeds up and down right now are 300 to 400 megabits up and down. It'll be gigabit, 10 gigabit. It's just going to be, at some point, it's just going to be on always, right?
yeah.
So, what does the immersive video experience look like to you?
I would say everyone has a different school of thought there, right?
Yeah.
For me, an immersive experience is where two people have a conversation without things breaking off, right? The flow of conversation has to be in a way where it does not get impacted. The quality does not get impacted,
Yep.
while you can play around a bunch of things in your background and with your post production as well. So the quality of the content is not only in what I do live, is also in what I'm able to do with it in post production, and
Okay.
that's the most important thing that I feel is the most immersive thing. Like, if you look at where the entire world is shifting towards the metaverse, you'll actually see that the next generation of tools that are going to be out there is going to be supporting you and I talking in metaverse,
Yeah.
and that's going to be even cooler, right? Like
I think so.
avatars talking to each other, and if the avatars can actually take a real skin of what we actually look like, that'll be even cooler. The idea here is while these things happen, the main thing is always going to be the crux of how great the quality of the output is. And if that does not improve over a period of time, we still haven't solved for an immersive challenge yet. Because while internet connectivity is getting better day by day
Yep.
everywhere in the world, to get to maybe 100% connectivity across the globe is going to take us another, I would say, 5 to 10 years.
At least.
And when we're there, I would say the biggest part is going to be just to have a seamless video calling experience. When that happens, everything else can start falling in place. And we have already developed a lot of things. It's not only us; a
For
bunch
sure.
of companies have been working on this, right?
Right. So here's my vision, and tell me if it's crazy, because I can't build these tools, but I feel like I know what it's going to look like. I'm
Yeah,
sitting in a room right now that's about 5 square meters, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger. I don't know. My eyes aren't great at measurements. I don't want to have this microphone, right? I don't want to have to turn on a camera. I don't want to have to focus it. I don't want to have to do anything. I want to walk in this room and I want to flip on some lights or just have the lighting be perfect so that when I come in here and talk to you, it feels like you and I are either in the same place or in a place where we can feel like we're together. That's how immersive I want it to be. And if you and I want to go somewhere where neither one of us are, like to Paris or back to London to walk around the campus where you went to school, we can do that immediately. That I
yeah,
think is going to be super cool. And if we can then record that and use the tools like Magnify to be able to say, hey, pick out the best parts of this conversation in real time and then cut it up and send it out. That's my
yeah.
vision, I think, of what an immersive future looks like in just the beginning, to be fair. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That'd be a pretty cool thing to happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think about. Can we just talk a little bit? Because I've got a, I'm really interested in this too, right? You announced in November this idea that you were going to set aside some money to fund some companies in the
Yeah.
video and audio space. Is the idea there that you just want to make sure that there are enough funded companies out there to use the tools that you're building? In other words, to build your own, like you said it's in the name, VideoVerse, right? To build this universe around the tools that you have. And is there a
Yeah.
status on that? Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, so the fund is up and live. We've already made, I would say, two investments out of the fund.
Cool.
One of the investments that we made was into a satellite imagery company that uses video to kind of
Neat.
detect, your crop analysis, and it
Yep.
gives those data to banks so that they can do the underwriting and they can do all the insurance programs built on top of it.
That's cool.
The second company that we have invested kind of uses technology, the video that we're talking, and the user use the webcam to actually talk about the attention span that we have on the screen or talk about what our movements are on the screen. So give you an analysis of how things function when we're actually having a video call, right? Like,
Yep.
am I attentive? Am I doing multiple things? How my ratio is? So multiple kind of, building those deep tech kind of on learning. The idea of launching the fund was very simple. We realized that over a period of time, we will not be able to build everything,
Yeah.
and we do not want to build everything.
Right.
But having a skin in the game for what others are building is going to be a pretty cool thing from two perspectives. Eventually, they can be a great roll up for us if we are able to kind of become bigger than what we are today and get to a stage. We can roll up these companies if they get to a certain stage. Or
Right.
second, let these companies be enabled from the experiences that we have taken over the years, teach it to them so that they don't make the same mistakes and are able to accelerate and become big companies in themselves. Both ways we benefit. If we don't acquire and the company becomes big, we make a lot of money.
Right.
And if we acquire them, we have a great technology that we have acquired.
I
So
like it.
both ways we have a thought process very clear why we want to do this. Though we have just made two investments so far, but the idea is to kind of make at least another 4 to 5 by the end of this year. And the idea is to kind of keep doing that for the next 2 years to keep making these investments in the video and the audio sector.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to let you go. This was awesome. Unless there's something else you want to mention. Vinayak Shrivastav, a co-founder and the CEO at VideoVerse. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.